Hello guys. So today, well, a few weeks ago, I got a message from a friend on Twitter who was asking me to make another tutorial on retouching dark skin. His name is George Oliver, and I want to say, George, thank you for bringing me back to this. I've done one a few years back, which I believe I've upgraded and updated myself as a photographer since then. So I decided to do a new one, and also to talk about my lighting approach towards this image. So this image was shot with one of my few friends I have currently as models, Halimat. So Halimat's a friend of my friend Napari Aisha, who's an amazing model, by the way. And Halimat came to my studio to have a shoot, and just out of the blue we shot this. So this was inspired during an era where blacks weren't allowed to walk around in public with their hair, and also because it was almost like a threat to the oppressors. So there was a law that was passed, and the law was to make black people cover or conceal their hair, and it was called the Tegon Law. It was passed in 1789 in Louisiana. So out of that sprang a lot of ideas with headdresses and unique approach towards head styling and with the African population. So back to the image. This image was shot with the Canon 7D Mark II and with a 50mm 1.8, the Nifty 50, and it was lit with a Celent modifier, 72-inch modifier, and a Jimbei HD 600V. I have a background in fine art, and I used to paint before I moved to photography. And during my process of painting and my trainings and all of that, I've always realized that a lot of fine art paintings are lit from the left. I don't know why. It looks good on the eye, and due to how popular it is, subconsciously it feels good. So I just want to show you a few of the images I just came up of where the image is lit from the left, with this exception where this is lit from the right. But with all this, you can see that it's lit from the left, almost at a 45-degree angle, so it feels a bit of the nose as well, and also gives it some attitude. So this is lit from the right, but not immediate right. So not immediate right meaning not a 90-degree angle. It's almost to the front. And that's one thing I noticed about lighting portraits with one light without a modifier or a bounce on the side, so that you can fill out your shadows from the right as much as possible. Sorry about that. So this is one of the most popular images, Mona Lisa, painted by Leonardo da Vinci, where she's lit from the left. I have no idea why it's done that. It just feels good, and for me, I love working with that approach. So that's how mostly I light my portraits. This is one of the from the series I shot with Halimat. This is one of the images that came out. There's a lot of process on this. As you can see, the headdress is not the same size as this, even though it's the same image. I did a lot of photoshopping to give it that kind of embracing or that kind of huge appeal, where on first look you appreciate the headdress. And I think it's very essential in storytelling to be able to direct your audience view to where in particular you want them to look at. So everything leads to a certain point in storytelling, be it color, be it angles, be it your lighting, and all of that. So understanding your colors, understanding your lighting is a very big deal in telling stories. So yeah, back to retouching. Today I'm using my favorite, the Retouch Academy, and that is just going to give you a walkthrough of how I retouch my images. And I retouch as much as possible so it doesn't look like it's retouched. You know, it gives you the natural feel, because I genuinely feel like whilst you spend so much time retouching your images, you end up making it lose character, and then it becomes something else. It's almost like a new person who we don't know. So usually I start with the stamping layers, and the stamping layer is just creating a base layer where you can always go back to. So I have this layer open, and I can always visit it when I have a mistake or I do something wrong. And I picked up that character since I was working at advertising as a graphic designer, and there's always like this clients coming back and forth with something that they're not too sure about, and there's always changes and there's always revert and all of that. So there's always like a base layer where you always go back to. Starting this retouch, I'm going to use the clone stamp tool, which I didn't know how powerful it was until recently. Yeah, I know. I just catched up. I just kept up with the whole train. So yeah, the clone stamp tool is an amazing tool, and it's something I use a lot, and well, for some time now, and it helps just sample the textures back to where you picked up from. Before I do any frequency separation, I try to clean up as much as possible as I can, and I feel like it gives me much freedom to be able to do it in a more convenient way. That's my preference. You could go with your frequency separating straight ahead, or you could do some cleaning up before you get to that. So yeah, I'm using the clone stamp tool, and this is the clone stamp tool if by any means you don't know. The shortcut to it is S. You can see it's a little bit dialogue. Okay, yeah, the shortcut to it is S. And to sample, you need to just sample closest. Let's say you want to take this off, you want to sample closest to that so that you don't mix textures. If I had done this, it's going to look different. So you want to sample close to it as much as possible with at least some hardness on it, just not too much so that it looks like it's a big stamp there. You want to make it blend with the rest of the textures beside as much as possible. So yeah, we're just going to clone all these parts away. And I'm using a Wacom tablet, so it's easier for me. When I hold down the Alt button and then I right click, I can reduce my diameter and the hardness at the same time. So I'm just going to clone stamp all these places and then try to maintain as much detail as possible. Take it from this way, as much detail as possible. You don't want to zoom in too much, because then what happens is that you end up being too detailed and then you don't realize that it doesn't merge with the rest of the scene. So yeah, clean as much as possible, not too much, so you can retain the originality of the person. I've seen some retouches which are amazing, but then it looks like a completely different person after you see the before and after. I know that's the whole idea, but you don't want to lose the person's character. You don't want to lose who the person is. And also there are some unique marks on people's faces that you always want to make sure you maintain doing retouching, because that's their character. That's what people can identify them with. It's similar to retouching someone who wears glasses, and then after that you take the person's glasses off completely. They can't be recognized by that. So you might want to keep all those features in place unless it's a specific requirement for that. It depends on your client. If the client requires you to do a specific requirement for that, then you might want to keep that in mind and get that done for them. Yeah, we know the client is always right. But since you're doing this for yourself and for portfolio basis, you might want to keep those marks and stuff in place so that it's easier to recognize the person with that. And I mean, like something like this, yeah, you know, like this is a very unique facial mark that you don't want to take away, because it identifies with her, it identifies with her culture, it identifies with her tribe, and it's her, so you don't want to take it away. Halimat, by the way, is from Yoruba in Nigeria, and I believe they have this recognizable facial marks that is probably associated with tribes or with family. So I'm just going to clear this away, all this little stuff away, not too much of it, so that we can retain detail. You take some, you leave some. Yeah, we don't take all of it. And then so you can tell that this part doesn't have too much texture, so you want to be very careful with that. You could always put texture back there, but then it wouldn't be that particular place's texture, so you might want to be careful with that approach. You could also realize that when you zoom out, you can tell which pores are big and which pores are not visible, are not that visible on a wide preview. So you might want to keep that in mind and then see which ones you have to tackle first and which ones you don't have to tackle first, or you don't have to tackle at all. So yep, take a wrong place, zoom in a bit, reduce the brush size, sample from this left, and then there we go. Just gonna save, good practice. I work in TIFF, by the way. I export to TIFF from my raw processing, which is Capture One Pro, and because the reason why I do that is because I use a Windows system, and it's very difficult for me to view raw files on a Windows system, especially like more advanced Canon files. You can't view them, you can't preview them unless you open like the Adobe Bridge, or any other file that allows you to preview them. And mostly I just want to check out if I'm working on the wrong file or the right file without having to open it in another software or anything of that sort. So yeah, I'm very mindful of working in TIFF, consider, and I can view on a very easy approach even with a preview. So yeah, I think we're good with that. So you can just see what we've done so far. This is what we've done so far. I've taken as much as possible, and then we're just gonna go to Retouch Academy, and then the radius helps you to tell how much texture you might want to see. So usually what I do is I zoom out a bit, look for the big textures, and then see if I increase my radius I can still see them. So some around here should be fine, because I can still see my textures even around that side. So if I increase too much, yeah, this is fine, on this side is fine. So yeah, take this off, and you can still see the big ones. The big ones are the big textures, the one you want to take off. So I usually work here. You can create like another layer and then work on it. If you prefer, it's easier that way, because then when you make a mistake, you can always go back to that or delete that part. But I think I prefer working here. So I'm just gonna clean the big ones that are more visible, and I'm still doing that by sampling from other textured ends. And yeah, should be good. Try and make this tutorial as fast as possible, because I know it's quite difficult watching long tutorials. So just zoom out a bit. Let's see. Yep. There we go. Okay. Quite a number of it. I think I might want to visit this place again. And what's happening there is that, if you can tell, I sampled from a very dark spot, so it's giving me some artifacts around the side. I might just leave that and then use the blend brush to, or the mix brush to, sorry, to blend out the highlight and shadow, so it's quite seamless. So you can see I'm doing that, and whilst I do that, you want to be mindful of where the shadows are coming from, where the highlights are coming from. The idea is to blend it, not to change the direction. So I'm gonna keep that in mind, like that. Yep, good. So you want to see what I've done? Yeah, like that, good. And also, you can keep your figures out around this side if you prefer. Usually it varies based on what you're working on, so I wouldn't say fixed. There are fixed figures for that. You might want to change and alter depending on what you're working on. So what I'm doing is I'm just painting as per the direction or the flow of the skin. It helps, it looks more natural, and it's a better approach to just painting across. I'm just gonna speed in this process so we can get back to that. Okay, so we got that done. I just fast forward that a bit so you can see the changes. And if you want to be able to view from, just hold on Alt and then select a layer, and it deselects everybody and just selects that. So you can see the change we've done. This is what This is what we have for that. And when you take it off, you can see the improvements. So you'll be able to blend. So you can see the blend between the side, the highlights, and then the midtones and the shadows. So usually, like on a beauty retouch, you might want to take all these lines off. Probably take off a few more things, but this is a fine art piece. It's a fine art photography piece. I love to keep it as natural as possible, and because that's my style. So yeah, I'm going to leave it that way. We're just going to go to dodge and bend, and so usually the dodge and bend gives you a visual aid, which is more like a black and white, just to take out everything color and just let you see what the highlights and shadows are. But I think I just prefer to work with it when I can see what I'm doing. So opacity somewhere around 30, flow somewhere around 30. It works for me. It might not work for you, but it works for me. So just I'll try which one feels works for you. I think it's more preferences than like fixed in stone. So I'm just gonna, on the dodge curve, want to work on the highlights a bit so you can see what you're doing. And then while you do that, crank down your hardness a bit. And then where it blends, you can just do a few strokes. No deep, because I'm using a Wacom tablet and it's pressure sensitive. So when I hold it down more, it gives more flow. And when I hold down less, it gives less flow. So I can blend in easy here. Then you can see what's happening there. It's like a little blend in towards the side. I work on a nose bridge because of how the image was lit. It gives more light to the nose bridge, so I'm just going to fix that side. And this image was shot without a reflector, without a bounce. It's just shot with the Silence 72 modifier parabolic and a Jimbe 8600V, which is one of my best strobe lights I've ever used so far. I'm yet to try anything from the Godox outdoor strobes. I currently use a Godox TC300 studio strobe, which I have used to light a few images. I'm going to show them to you in some time soon. And I probably would have like a studio session where I don't have my studio currently in a good shape, so I can't film from there. But as soon as I have it done, I'm going to have like a behind the scene how I light my set. So in the meantime, what I'm doing is I'm just working on the highlights, deepening it a bit with thin strokes, just to make it stand out a little bit more. And you can tell from this side, you can tell how the light cuts out the throat from the throat area from the neck. And I love it so much. One thing I also love lighting this way. So this was lit on 45-degree angle. One thing I really love about lighting this way is it helps me cut out the image from the background, even with the least depth of field. So this was shot like the least depth of field, and because of the lighting, you can tell how it cuts out the background from the image. Like the image stands out from the background, which I really love a lot. The background was given to me by my friend. Well, I bought it from him, my friend from Muse. Muse is a photographer. He does backdrops. He's an amazing backdrop artist. You should check him out sometime. I'll probably put a link beneath so you can just grab some backdrops from him in your spare time. It gives textured backdrops, gives some texture to your images, and it helps give life to it. It's not a plain backdrop. Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm working on the bend curve, and the bend darkens the shadows. Gives more contrast to the midtones. So I'm just going to target the shadows where I want to make stand out a bit. And I'm a very subtle artist. I always try to work less of it. Too much of it is bad. Exactly. So you might want to be very mindful of which direction you're headed towards to. And because the facial marks is a very big part of it, I'm just going to deepen it a bit so it stands out from the rest, because I did the mixed brush too, and it's probably taking, well, it is taking out a little more detail from her. So I'm just going to put in some more character into that so that you can see what we just did. So you can see it's a little bit deep, which I love, by the way. So yeah, on that note, I think I'm good with this. Now we can see where we came from, and this is where we are now. A little more detail, and yeah, I'm just gonna tone this down a bit. I think it's a little bit too much. So now I'm just trying to give it this attitude with the headdress, and this is a headdress I cropped from another image. I'm just gonna drag and drop it here. Yeah, that's it. So one thing for me about storytelling is being able to bring the images out as much as possible, give it more character, and also to be able to communicate as much as possible as I want to, because this is communicating the Tigran law and how headdresses was a way of oppressing Black Americans. Oppressing Black Americans who found a way to push against it. I think it's only important that I'm able to communicate it in a very strong approach. So it's because what happened was that the hairdressers were supposed to conceal their hair, but then it became a fashion statement. And usually that's what happens when people are oppressed, they push back. It became a fashion statement, and then it became like a movement. So hairdressers became more intricate, became more loud, and became like a fashion attire instead of something to hide their hair from the public. So this crop has a max layer on it. I love working max layer, non-destructive. The best way to go, especially for me coming from an advertising background where there's always changes in something. You might always want to have a layer where you could always visit and then fix where problems are. So I'm just using the max layer, and then on the max layer, when you use the brush tool, when you select the max layer and then you choose a brush tool, it gives you the black and white. The black takes away the white adds. So I'm just going to take away a bit more of this, and some people will do the pen tool. I love the brush. I think it gives me more freedom than the pen tool does, and someone might disagree, but for me, that's my approach. That's what works for me. Some people are experts at using the pen tool. For me, the brush is what I find comforting. So now what I'm doing, I'm just trying to see where I could bridge the two of them together as seamless as possible. So I think somewhere around here would work for me, and just gonna push this down a bit. Yeah, somewhere around here should work for me. Yeah, somewhere around there should do. So now we're just gonna do cleanups, where you could increase the hardness a bit because I'm getting really close to the line, and then yep. So now I'm just gonna clean up and then try to merge it as effortlessly as possible. As if that's even a word. I'm wondering if effortlessly is a word. Yeah, but this is what I'm doing currently. This is quite painstaking considering that there's a lot of strokes, and much easier for me since I use a Wacom tablet, because just imagine you're using a mouse for this. There's so much stress, and wrist hurts. Your wrist will hurt so bad from all those strokes. So now you can see, like, I'm blending the images together and trying to give it a new look, much stronger look, with a broader appeal, and also to be able to communicate the Tigran law and what it tried to do to my people. So my people being Africans. So some might argue with me that they are African Americans, but as Burna Boy's mom said, always remember you were African before you became something else. So yeah, I want to consider that. So just gonna fix this part. I keep hitting the X key, I don't know why. Yep, now that blended well. That side looks good so far. And usually I do this quite often. I do this quite often where I'm like adding things to other images in Photoshop, and I think I love it. It gives me more room to be able to create, because during the shoot for this, we didn't have like anybody to be fixing the gele for us. So gele is a headdress originally from Nigeria, and it's very very loud, like big loud headdresses from Nigeria, which I love, by the way. And we didn't have it takes like a very strong expertise to be able to tie it. It's a whole craft on its own, so we didn't have anybody to be able to tie that for us. So we got like one that was lying somewhere around, and then just made something out of it. So yeah, so I'm just checking on the image to see if we're on the right line. I think I want to put this guy under this one instead. I think it looks much better that way. So I'm just gonna paint the whites back, and that's why I said you should work non-destructive, because you could always do changes without having to go through another tour of retouching it again. So okay, that doesn't work. We're going back to previous. So yeah, I think we've got like this, like a rushed approach to it. It takes some time to perfect, but currently I think I have what I'm looking for, or at least I have a blueprint of what I'm looking for. I'm just gonna rotate the headdress around a little bit, and to rotate the headdress without affecting the marks, because you don't want to paint again, just take off the chain link off, select the image, and then you can rotate, and then it keeps your marks in place. So I think something of this sort should work for me. I think I like this better. Let me see. Yep, I think I like this better. I'll put the link back, fix this part a tiny bit. Okay. And then I'm gonna paint the background from the previous image, but by blending it. So I just reduce the opacity on the brush to be able to blend it together. Now we have this. You could tell that this is very similar to this because it was cut from the same cloth. So I'm just gonna merge a layer. To merge a layer, Shift Control Alt E, and that merges everything into one layer for you. Not everything, but like giving you a fixed layer. I'll go to the local file too, just to make some few changes to it and make it a little bit of a unique character on its own. So I'm just gonna make this happen with what's happening? Constructive brush. Sorry. There we go. Yeah. Give it some little attitude. Just make it look a little bit different from the other image. so that nobody can tell that we stole something from here and put it there, you know. So yeah, I think we should be good with this. Let's have a subtle, be as subtle as possible, because that's like the whole trick, keeping it subtle and also to be able to have that kind of look that you want, that's close to realism. So for this image, you can tell that it's slightly less contrast, because I have like this film stills from the website I downloaded from. That's I forgot the name of the website, but they are film stills that give you the vintage look to it. And I'm just gonna slap it on top of it, and then it washes out some of the contrast and gives it more of like a realistic film look, which I think I like for this particular image. So yeah, thank you guys for staying with me throughout this tutorial, and if you haven't done, please like and subscribe on my page. So it helps me know the amount of people watching my tutorials, and also to see my growth and see if people like it or not. And comment as well, share your opinions, share what you think could have been better, share what you think I did right, and yeah, let's grow together.